Hi everyone, welcome to the very first Cult Fans interview podcast. And today we have got composer for the Outpost, James Schafer. I'm TJ, the creative Cult Fans, and James was very highly requested by, well, particularly Stacey, but quite a few people. So we figured we would get him on board to chat about his work on composing the Outpost as well as all of his other work. And I will let James introduce himself now.
Hi. Well, thank you. Thanks for having me. Um, I'm, honored, obviously, to have someone ask to interview me. You get all the actors, get interviews, and so it's nice to that you guys are interested in the people that are behind the camera and stuff. And so, yeah. Anyway, been writing the music for the Outpost, and before that, a lot of other stuff. I think some people, are Mythica fans, and probably I think a few of you know me from doing 4 and 5 Mythicas, and I've done a bunch of other various projects and whatnot. So
Yeah, I think that that was the general aim for us was to also focus on the crew besides just the main cast because we noticed a lot of other sites generally will only focus on the cast, and we thought, well, it'd be nice to know how were the swords made, how was the music done, like a lot of the behind the scenes work, like going to get some of the stunt people, and so like it's not just on the acting cast because there's a lot of work that goes behind the scenes a lot of people don't see, and we want to be able to spotlight that. So yeah, that's generally why we've been approaching the crew as well because we want them to. I mean, they're as involved as anyone, so we want to show the behind the scenes work as well as the actors. So yeah, that's
yeah,
that way it gives
yeah,
them a
no,
bit more of the spotlight than they used to, which is nice.
that's why I appreciate it. The actors, of course, do an awesome job,
Mm.
and they've been very kind to their fans, which is really good, and so it there. I mean, like you said, there are a lot of people behind the camera that have done a lot of work too, and stuff. So it's nice when we're acknowledged as well. Even if it's just a little bit.
Yeah, because I know there's like initially like a lot of flack on the costumes and stuff. I'm going, look, they've actually like got particular people building the armor and stuff. Like it's not they didn't just go out and buy it. And so I was like, right, we need to show not only the fans but like everyone that there is a lot of work that goes on behind the scenes on this show. Like, it's got a huge crew. I mean, every time I've gone on IMDb, it's like the crew's like it's like a
Yeah,
huge list. I
yeah.
think there's like something like 5 editors and stuff, and so like it's
For
and you did all 10 episodes, so
well, with me, I've been doing everything myself. Some composers, have they'll have assistants or people to help, and you know, even if like help writing or even if it's just doing the paperwork or whatever. And I unfortunately I'm just it's I've been doing everything myself, so I've just been wiped out, and um, looking forward to finishing episode 10, which I'm working on right now, and of course, since it's the season finale, it's loaded with music and everything, and I'm not going to give any hints, but there's just a ton, a lot more than other episodes.
He's totally
you
gonna
given
give me
yeah,
hints.
given I've sort of got an in sorry, uh, yeah, given I've got an insider um, on the season finale, I'm assuming you've got some pretty solid score for the end scene. I would
Um,
imagine.
I'm not there yet. I'm about, um, usually these episodes average around 30 minutes of music, and I think this one has a little bit more.
Okay.
So I don't know. The first episode took the longest to write, um, just because it was the first episode, and I was, every scene had to be approved and going over with and making changes, and they want, it was a matter of me adjusting what I'm writing to the producer's tastes and them understanding how I write and stuff. And so episodes 2 through 9, I generally did in a week and a half to 2 weeks. I think episode 8 I did in a week. Um, and that was,
Episode 8 a bit bigger musically, is it?
sorry.
Episode 8 a bit bigger musically.
They've
That's
no,
why
they've
it
all
took longer.
have had a lot of music. Episode 8 was just nice because I have two little kids, and um, them and my wife went on a family vacation without me, so I had the place to myself. So I was able to, work 20 hours a day and just get it
Uh,
done. But not that I enjoyed them being gone, because of course I miss them. But when you have two little kids running in and out of your office while you're
yeah.
working, it slows things down. So anyway, episode 9 I think I did in a week and a half, and 10 just because it's the finale and there's a lot of dramatic stuff and everything. There's obviously more music, so I'm crossing my fingers that this time next week I'll be done with 10, but I don't know if I will. I don't want to say for sure. Because, like I was saying, I'm not even near the end. I'm probably a third of the way through episode 10 just because it's been nonstop music so far.
Yeah,
uh,
from what I can gather of episode 10, it's going to be like both music being huge, going by the
well,
stakes and the end scene. I gather it's huge.
I mean, hopefully, it's the one thing I've noticed with television versus film is they do mix everything different. On Outpost, the there's been Nate Hoffman and his assistant China have been mixing most of the episodes, but episode 5 and then 10 are mixed by another mixer named Carlos. And I'm friends with both of them, and they're both amazing mixers. And so I think all of us were, well, Carlos. I mean, he has more experience, but Nate and I at least kind of used. Nate mixed all the Mythica movies, if anyone was curious. Him and I are kind of used to film where you can kind of turn up the music a little bit more, but on TV it seems like they want the music a little bit lower. So it's been fine. I haven't watched all the episodes when they've aired. I mean, mostly because I've been busy working, but
Yeah.
I'll check them out on like the CW app or in certain scenes. And there'll be some scenes where I'm like, I wish the music was louder, but it's okay.
I think episode 5 with the choreography, which if you remember, because it probably would have been a while back, with the where they're fighting on the roof
Yeah.
with the crazy choreography. I think it was like the last 5 minutes of episode 5, and where I think it was Talon and Shek, it might have been, or like, or one of his henchmen were like on the roof, and there was just this crazy kicking and music. Like episode 5 was where I really noticed the music from you. I was like, okay, either I'm picking it up because we've got James's guest, or the music is just really adding to their choreography at the moment.
Well, that's good to hear. I mean, I haven't watched any of episode 5 yet, just because I've been busy. So I haven't checked, but obviously when I'm working, I can control the dialogue and sound
Mm.
effects on my end. So I usually just turn it down and write, you know. So I just hear the music when I'm working, and so I think I get used to that. So when I watch it, like as the final product, it may sound fine to you guys, but obviously to me, I'm like, I wish it was louder, but it's just, I mean, I'm sure every composer's like that.
Yeah,
So
I'm a photographer in my spare time, and I've done that with my photos. And it's like, the model will be like, "Yeah, I love that," and then I'll be like, "Yeah, but I don't." See, I
Artists
know
are
where you're
always
coming
their
from there. It's like, yeah,
artists are always their own worst critics. Everyone will
yeah,
love it, and you will pick at that one pixel or that one C sharp that sounded
yeah,
okay until you released it, and then it will eat your soul until the day you die. I understand.
yeah,
No, I know, I know. No, I mean,
mm,
you know, it's just mostly with action stuff. It's action music is takes a lot more work to do because it's faster and there's a lot more notes and a lot more instruments. And
mm,
I mean, the for example, in episode 10, this I'm working on this action scene, and not that it's I'm spoiling anything because of course there's going to be action, but like I've been working on it for the past 5 days, and you spend this much time on it, and then it just gets turned down, and it just I don't want to make it seem like
mm,
I'm criticizing him because I'm not, because that's just the norm. But as
yeah,
a composer, it's just one of those moments where you're like, you spent a lot of time on something, and then it's just kind of barely heard. So I mean, not that I put less effort into it. I mean, I still put 110% into it, even if it's just making myself happy, just because I want it to sound good. And if someone someday hears it without, as like on a soundtrack, then I want to make sure it sounds the best it can for that kind of thing
yeah,
too. So and it helps too. I mean, if it sounds good, you know, it, even though it may be covered up by like sword fights and punching and stuff,
yeah.
if it's still sounding good, it helps the scene. So it's
Yeah, I
like I
think
said.
MP5 might have had a bit more of that. As like, there was a lot more silence from the actors, and there was more fighting and chasing. So I think that's why I probably noticed in music like that,
Yeah, yeah.
because
Episode
it was less
5 with
dialogue.
yeah the end of it, or a lot of the I'm trying to remember it. I'm trying, I like I I've written so much music. I'm trying to remember what I did in 5.
It was Shek and the Lakiri,
Yeah,
with the Lakiri going through the sewers and stuff. That one. That was where I
yeah.
sort of picked the music up between that and the rooftop fights. Basically, it was where the music was really evident and front and center.
Oh, that's good. That's good to hear. I'll have to check it out then. And it's like at the same time, it's like the whole scene with Shek when she's fighting him, and
Mm,
same with the first episode with Magmore. It's like the music needs to be big and dramatic, but they're also like speaking over and over
yeah,
that moment. So there's like a balance you have to kind of mess with because obviously voices are like instruments where they're at certain frequencies, and so like when they're speaking, I still need to have the action going, but I at the same time I know it's going to be under when they're speaking because obviously the dialogue's number one,
yeah.
and so I have to try to pick instruments that are above and below their speaking frequencies, and like I said, trying to keep it going. So,
So when you say
and
pick
I know
instruments, are you actually working with the live musicians or to create the score?
myself, I think I know a lot. Some shows are able to financially support that.
Yeah.
Obviously it's no guess that Outpost is a low budget show, so
Mm.
um, most most of what you hear is coming from my computer. Um, there's some instruments I'll play myself. I had mentioned on Twitter that like for the Esacon stuff, I've I was playing the didgeridoo and just to get like some of sound effects and
As an
um,
Australian, that's impressive. I'm an Australian, and that's impressive.
well, I'm not saying I'm good at it. So I'm not a professional, but I can make a sound with it. So you know,
That's probably
there
better than most of us, to be honest.
I'm going to be bad and unmute because you said didgeridoo. I've got
Oh
a
no.
thing for you.
Oh,
It sits next to me right here.
do you know how to play it?
No, I don't. But
Well,
1 second here.
I remember some people are asking what instruments I play, and this kind of relates to the didgeridoo. So I have a didgeridoo, and I know how to make a sound with it because my primary instrument is trumpet. Actually, I've played that since I was like 9 or 10, and I played it through college and everything. So one of the techniques was to blow through a didgeridoo to loosen your lip muscles, and so I've only really used it for that, just for trumpet playing. But on this show, it's come in handy, which is nice.
I was going to say, on
So
the subject of musical instrument, I think Stacey had a question surrounding you playing one. If Stacey would like to jump in on that.
Yeah, that was something that everybody was wondering on Twitter. We wanted a list of the instruments that James did play, that he claims to play. Anyways, we can't prove it, but so you can elaborate however you need to.
We need the demo of the didgeridoo right now, dude. No.
Yeah,
That's true.
yeah. I think I was referring to the sax solo that got name dropped a lot on Twitter as well.
Oh, we'll go back to that.
I'll see if I can.
Wow.
So
I don't regret asking.
No,
That's awesome.
I think
I'm
given
not.
it's a fairly indigenous instrument in Australia, the fact that an American can play that is quite talented.
Well, I mean, it's like I
Shay
said,
actually can.
I don't want to claim I'm a professional at it because I'm not. I only used it for sound effect for Esacon when you see her in episode
Oh,
6.
nice.
uh, anyway, so my main instrument's trumpet, and then um, I mean, I guess I'll just kind of show you. So obviously, I have a keyboard. So I mean, I can play piano. I know the notes. I can play chords and melody. But if you put a Chopin piece in front of me, I could read the music, but I couldn't play it. I'm not a professional piano player. um, and then I've been using it a lot on Outpost. I have a bunch of, you can see, like small percussion, shakers. I've been using actually a strainer a lot for Janzo's music.
I'm gonna have to go back and listen to that now and just go, oh, that's a strainer.
Now we can recreate it at home.
Yes.
Well,
Now we know.
and then I have
A DIY tutorial from James.
I have pan pipes and flutes I've been using for Esacon. Get some light here. So then
Well, that leads into my appropriate question. Does ESSA have a theme? That was literally one of my questions. So that's wildly good timing.
So most of the characters have a melodic theme. Essa, I started writing one, but it just didn't feel right because she's really. I don't want to give away her character, but she's just different than the other characters in the show, and so like a melodic kind of theme didn't really fit her. So I just kind of came up with more sound effecty kind of sound. And then the same with the Lakiri. I know, I think it's episode 4 or 5. The Smith is, when he's talking about uh, trying to, one of the many times he's trying to tell Talon how to banish the demon. One of the times he's talking about it, and I have kind of a Lakiri melody, but when it shows the Lakiri, it didn't fit. at the end of episode 4 when she actually confronts the Lakiri, and it just did the melodic theme for the Lakiri didn't fit there. So what felt better to me was more sound effecty sound design. I mean, like I said, I haven't really watched the episode, so I don't know if it's heard, but I have like real heavy, a lot of synthesizers, and it's kind of like non pitched really. It's just more of just like a rumbling kind of stuff. So with those two characters, yeah, it's not as melodic. But the other characters, I've been trying to do more melodic themes. I mean, I grew up, in the '90s, so I was '80s and '90s, so that's when you know film scores and stuff were big on melodies, like
Yeah.
John Williams and James Horner, Jerry Goldsmith, and even still Hans Zimmer and all them. So I
I was going to ask about your inspirations actually. So
well, I mean, a lot of the film composers, obviously, James Newton Howard too, and I like a lot of the regular classical composers, Stravinsky, Tchaikovsky, Shostakovich, Beethoven, all of those guys. So, I mean, I went to school obviously for this, so I've studied a lot of them. But anyway, growing up in the '90s, it's like I felt like a lot of movies back then were big on melodic themes, and I kind
yeah,
of feel old school in that way. So I like to have melodic themes, and I feel like the past decade and a half or so, composers have kind of I don't I don't know steered away from it. I don't know if it's their choice or if the director producers have chose not to have them for their films. I'm not sure. The nice thing though is John Lyd, who's directed 5 of the episodes
yeah.
for Outpost. I work with him a lot, and he is like myself, where he loves melodic themes. So majority of the projects I've worked on have been with him, and he's always happy when I come up with something melodic. And
Yeah, that was one of the the things I was going to ask is, do the directors give you a guide when you just mentioned John? I was just like, do they give you a guide for scoring each episode? Like, we want this sort of music.
uh, I don't. Well, like on if I'm working on a a regular movie, then I go over the film with the director. But on this TV show, I've been going over each episode with Jonathan Glassner, the showrunner slash executive producer. So he kind of has, he's one of the top guys, and so him and I usually go over each episode. And Jonathan's awesome. I mean, I love working with him. And I was nervous at first because he's known for Stargate SG and
Oh yeah,
some other big shows, and so obviously episode 1 I was nervous to work with to work with him, but he's been super cool and super supportive, and he's enjoyed everything I've done, so I really enjoyed working with him. And so anyway, like you were asking, so they would send me the episodes as they come, so I see them like the audience does as they come, so that when I'm composing, the music reacts as the audience would. I'm not, if I know the story ahead of hand, then it can affect the way I would write the scene. So,
oh, that makes
Jonathan,
sense. Yeah,
yeah, and Jonathan would purposely, I would, while we were going over an episode, I'd be like, well, is this going to happen to this character or is this going to happen? And he's like, you'll have to wait and see, because he doesn't want me to, kind of foreshadow something with the music. And
yeah.
so it's kind of been that way, especially with the upcoming episodes. And I don't know how much to say because I don't want to give anything away. And
Well, the only thing Sonali's told us about Essa is that she's got like a teeth file. She's got no allegiance, because she did an interview with me for Sci-Fi Locker, and we discussed Essa a little bit, but yeah, that's pretty much like what you give away is that she's got no allegiance, she does it for the money, and she's loyal to the money basically, and will do whatever it takes. So yeah, that's about like the extent that she was able to give away. But yeah, I think if you knew at the end of episode 10, you probably would foreshadow it.
Yeah.
I think anyone would, to be honest. So yeah, that makes sense that Jonathan did it that way with you. That because yeah, now like you'd think it's like fairly straightforward and logical, but until you point it out, and then you're like, oh yeah, of course that makes sense. Because if you know the ending of something, you're just gonna unintentionally foreshadow.
Yeah, and it's been like that with a few characters. I mean, when I was for like I think episode 2 or something, I was asking about the progression of Gwen's character, and to kind of set up what I'm gonna do for her, and Jonathan was just like, "You're gonna have to wait and see," you know.
Your coy grins as you discuss your plans for these characters are all I need to know.
Say that again. My
Your coy
Your coy
grins as you
grins.
discuss the fate of these characters, this little knowing smile you have for the torture that waits ahead for us.
Yeah.
Actually, there were a few questions, if you don't mind me cutting in briefly here.
Yeah, well, I've got one, but it's not relevant to the Outpost. It's relevant to his other work. So, yeah, I was going to pass to you guys for the Outpost questions anyway.
Yeah,
Okay,
go ahead.
wonderful. So there's actually a few. We were speaking of your inspirations. You gave a list of your various inspirations and a list of the different mediums you've used, as well as you mentioning the feeling you get, as in the melody wasn't working for Essa or for the Kiri at the certain scene. So I was wondering. I noticed you actually got the Harry Warren Scholarship for Excellence at USC. I was wondering, is it anything you're actually trained in, or is this really just something you feel from the heart? Because you mentioned it's not the director or anything really telling you anymore. There's some of that, but is it something inside of you that really calls out? Is it something you learn along the way, or is it something in between?
I think it's. I don't know. I mean, I personally always felt that you can. I mean, this is kind of getting more into the musical, technical, geeky side. I feel like because I have a bachelor's and master's in music composition, and I've always felt like you can teach like orchestration and arranging of instruments and stuff, and you can teach counterpoint and all that. But personally, I don't feel that you can teach someone composition. I feel like that's the art part of it. I mean, anyone can write music, but to write, something that sounds good, I think is something that probably comes from the heart or some kind of muse or inspiration. And um, so, when I was in school, it's like I did my master's at USC, and they 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 kind of taught that kind of stuff, but it was more of the technical, like computer side and kind of the business side. And then same with when I was getting my bachelor's, they kind of taught a little bit of the musical part, but um, when it comes to like actually scoring a scene and the emotion and everything, for me, I feel like I've kind of taught myself by watching and listening to, you know, um, the bigger guy, like the pros like John Williams and Hans Zimmer and James Horner and all of them. And so it's kind of like it's not so much, yeah, they can all write great music and great melodies and everything, but it's the little things they do, like the way they react to a facial expression and what they do with the music. And like one of my favorite movie scores of all time is Braveheart, and I just think that James Horner, he nailed it on the emotion in like every scene in that film. And I know there's a lot of people that dislike James Horner. We can say that he, copies himself a lot, and maybe he does. I feel like I do too, but it's like after you write, 200 films like he has, or 150 or whatever, you're kind of, running out of ideas. So of course you're going to start sounding like yourself. But
And it's even finding your vein to some extent, the spirit you're speaking through. So
yeah, and so I feel like for me, going back to your question, I mean, I tweeted, and again, I'm still new at Twitter, but I tweeted about like I love Dano in this, even though he has no lines. And I'm not gonna say what happens, but in episode 8, there's episode 8 or 9, I can't remember. There's a scene with him, and it's very emotional, and it's all in his facial expressions. And it's like I'm watching that, and like I'm my job as the composer is to portray the emotions of the characters. So, I mean, I pretty much steer the audience their emotions, because if there's like people kissing and loving and everything on the screen, and I throw in some circus music, that's gonna make it funny, right? you know but if I make it romantic and nice and pretty, then it's gonna make it more heartfelt. So that's the purpose, I think, of the music, and with anything, not just me. And so going back to what I was saying, it's like Dano doesn't speak a word, but just his emotions, like that really steered me a certain way with the music whenever you see it. Whenever the
it's
audience
something
sees
I think the audience doesn't generally understand, and it's something I'd really like to impress to anyone that's viewing this. Music sets this rhythm that people don't even consciously understand, and what you do is so important to conveying the very structure of the show you're working on. Like, my hat's off to you, sir, for what you do.
it. Oh, thank you. I mean, I appreciate it, of course.
I also noticed we actually had a brief conversation a while ago about you chose Cubase as your favorite client, and you said you end up with Pro Tools is what you do your final mixing on. And you mentioned being taught some things in college. You mentioned it was a personal preference, that things are different for each person. Is there something specific you could tell someone that's younger or trying to get into it on why Cubase called out to you, or is it just ease of access?
Was this someone's question, or is it just off
It's
the top of
mine.
your head? Oh, uh, I, I don't know. I mean, I've used a lot of the major programs out there for writing, and I've settled on Cubase. I just find that they all do the same thing. It's just that's why I say it's personal preference. Cubase I just find I can work quicker in. So, and I've used it the longest, so I've just gotten used to it. And Pro Tools, I wouldn't even use Pro Tools, but that's what the mixer and Dean Devlin's company, what they require me to deliver the music to them in. So,
Okay.
I don't know if you can see. I have Pro Tools on. It's on my laptop right here. So, and then behind me I have Cubase. So I know this is more technical and nerdy. So people
I'm all
probably.
here for the technical and nerdy.
So I write in Cubase with the keyboard and everything, and all the instruments feed into Pro Tools there, and then Pro Tools spits out the audio into the speakers behind me. So that's how I work. And it's just I've set it up that way, so that way when I'm done with because I'll do an entire episode in one Cubase project, and then I'll just in Pro Tools hit record and record all the music in one go, and then do a little final tweaking and send it off to the mixer. And it's more of a time thing, you know. Like when I'm working on a film, I'll have more time so I can spend a little more time doing the final mixing. But with this show, it's just I just got to hurry up and get it to the mixer and everything.
Which episode Talon is that? For those that are only listening, there's Talon on James's screen behind him. Which episode Talon is that we've got there?
Well, this is 5, so I loaded up
Ah.
my section from 5. Let me see if I can do this. It's just easier if I turn it around. So, I mean, this is the beginning. It's gonna. I mean, obviously the music will sound like crap because it's coming through my my iPad speakers, but you can see what. So it's not playing.
What synths did you use for that?
I have a lot.
You have a lot.
Let's see. So I have a few computers. So I have Omnisphere, and I have a bunch of. There's a German company that makes one called Zebra. So I think these synths are Zebra, but a lot of it is you can see is audio manipulation.
Mm-hmm.
So what I did was I would take the synth part from the synthesizer and then record it down to audio, and then I'll throw a bunch of effects on the audio. So that's what the Lakiri looks like without the visual effects.
It's awesome.
Amazing. Just keep it like that for the next episode now.
Yeah.
Wow.
So you can see the Lakiri jumps out the window, and I kind of had to guess when it leaves the window. And there's been a lot of that, like I'll turn the camera back around. Oh, come on. Where's the...
If I walk through there and they see me.
There you go. So, like at the end of episode 4, when she fights the Lakiri and it stabs her. Sorry if people haven't watched episode 4.
Spoilers.
That whole scene, there was nothing there for me to work to. It was just all on the screen. It'll just say the Lakiri's doing this, the Lakiri's doing that, and I just kind of had to guess. And even like when it stabs her in the stomach, I had to just kind of guess where it was gonna stab her, just based off of Jessica's reaction, like her jolt or something. And so there's a lot of stuff like that. It's not just with the Lakiri. There's parts where, I know in episode 5 when Talon, Garrett covers her mouth and says, my dad's coming to get you, and she tries to escape. Like that whole scene, they shoot an arrow crossbow at her, and I kind of had to hit that with the music. I don't know if it's heard, but there was no, obviously they didn't really shoot an arrow at Jessica, so I kind of had to guess where when it hits her, or not hits her, but when it flings by her, kind of thing. So there's been a lot of stuff like that. In episode 9, there's some scenes like that where there's absolutely no visual effects and they don't have them ready, so I just had to guess on what's happening based off what the actors are doing. And I think episode 7 also, there's some visual effect characters. And I'm not going to say what happens, but, it's like the actors are being thrown around on stunt strings and stuff, and I have to react to that rather than the visual effects kind of thing.
Um, Gosh, I had one more. Oh, I noticed you work almost primarily with Aerostorm that I've seen. Is there, for example, your position? It's something that kind of like you're showing us. It's a small room. You're often kind of independent with some communication, but do you have a particular dynamic with the cast of the production company? Because again, I've noticed a good deal of your work is attached to them. Is there some sort of camaraderie? Are you familiar with the crew at all because of that?
I have to say that I wouldn't have a composing career if it wasn't for the director John Lyde. I mean, he's become one of my good friends, and I love him to death. John, I guess, has he Aerostorm hires him a lot, and then John attaches me. When it's a film, a lot of the time, most of the time, with like a movie, the director gets to pick their composer. With a TV show, on the other hand, it's not that like that. So, for the Outpost, there was I was in the running with a bunch of other composers. I don't know who. I don't know. I can't say who was up against, but I know John was able to recommend me, and then Kynan and Jason, who created Outpost. I guess I don't. I've worked with them a lot, so I guess they were able to recommend me. But I think it ultimately came down to Jonathan Glassner, the showrunner, and um, they were already filming like episode 5 or something when they were finally let me know. I think it was like February of this year when they're like, "Oh yeah, by the way, you're gonna be scoring the Outpost," and then it
It's
was
like,
like,
oh, I was still in for that.
yeah. Well, and then it was like a couple weeks later, they're like, "Here's the first episode." So, and I was in the middle of finishing a film at the time, so I had to work on the Outpost and finish that film, and then I got another film while I was working on the Outpost, so I was doing that film and the Outpost at the same time, and I just wasn't sleeping much. I'll just say for those couple months. But going back to Aerostorm, like I said, I've done a lot of their stuff mostly because of John Lyde. He's I've always worked with him, and he's been awesome to work with. And so, like, when I'm done with Outpost, John's already saying, "Hey, I have a couple films we're going to be working on," and I'm like, "Can I at least have a couple weeks of a break?" I mean,
Are there interesting films for us to hear about and look forward to that you could tell us?
uh, I'm not even sure what they are.
I don't know. He just wants me there.
Well, I mean, that's it. Again, I wouldn't have a career if it wasn't for John. I mean, before I met John, I was doing short films like once a year, and I was working for other composers, which was like as their assistants, which was it was a good experience, but I was like scraping by financially, and not that I'm doing well now, but I'm you John has I I met John, you know, by accident. Um, I know this story has gone around in the Utah film community at least, but John was making a film that he already had someone else in mind for a composer, but the executive producer found me online and liked my music and said, "I want to hire this guy." So John was kind of bitter about it. He was really nice to me still, but he didn't really, he already had someone. And so I sent him the first scene of the film, and he was like, "All right, I like this guy," and and so since that was I think 2009, so since then I've scored all of John's projects since, and a lot of them just happen
He's
to be
awesome.
yeah, a lot of them just happen to be Aerostorm projects, and so I think it's more of Aerostorm hires John and John hires me. So that's kind of why I've done a lot of their stuff.
And now it is a very tough industry. Like you described, you're fighting out there as someone's assistant, you music producer slash coffee slash whatever it is you can do when you're kind of running around getting what you can to get the experience, and minding your scholarship at USC. Even despite that, you kind of dealt with it. Is like looking where you're at now. Is there anything? Because Tim's looking to also feature small indie artists that are looking to get out there. So, is there anything you could tell them? Like, if you had a crystal ball and could talk to you like 15 years ago or something and tell you anything about achieving a music career, what would you tell the people out there?
I don't know where to start. I mean, I think the main thing is just if you love it that much, with any career, just persistence, because it is very tough. And like, even though, I'm doing the Outpost and I'm constantly busy with a lot of other work, I still don't feel like I've made it. And it's like when I'm writing the music for the show, I'm like, what the heck am I doing? I don't even know what the heck I'm doing. I feel like I have no clue how to write music.
Pretend you're a
I think that's an
professional.
artist thing. Yeah.
Pretend you're a professional. Eventually, someone will think you are one. No, your music really is. It's fantastic. I really do appreciate it. I have an ex actually who was indie composer. That's why I stare at him like, "What do you use? Is it Cubase? Is it Fruity Loops? What did you do?" And you're like, "It's all technical. It's all nerdy. Talk nerdy to me. I will talk it all day." So, that said, I think that's pretty much the tip of my questions. Does Stacy have any more?
Yeah, I have a couple that I'm going to ask from more of a laid back fan part. I'm not as technical as Min is. Um, I want to ask about one of the first things that I ran across you on for Twitter uh, was in the Twitter sphere of tweeting for the show was the big sax solo joke that we have been tweeting about since I think it was around episode 2 that came about, and that's been absolutely a hoot. So, would you like to comment or clarify or add anything to that?
um, I, it was just a joke. I mean,
I
just because
know.
the
I was
it's
really
like
hoping it was an actual sax solo though.
no, it's like because I take a picture of the screen and I'm like, hey, I'm halfway through this episode, and people really don't care about the picture of my screen because they're like, what am I looking at? It's just a bunch of lines. But um, with what I showed, like each one of these is an instrument, and I have probably over 2,000 of them loaded up and for the Outpost. And so for like the geeky people, it probably makes sense. But anyway, the sax solo, I brought that up because it would, the sax was overused in '80s movies, and obviously
Yeah.
I would not stick it in the Outpost. It wouldn't fit.
I feel like you have to in season 2 now though. Like you have to deliver that sax solo for season 2.
There's for just a second, if nothing else.
Yeah, the show gets to season 2. You have to drop the sax solo, and we'll just get the reference from an insider's point.
Give us
For
first exclusive cut of it to play here. We'll have it be
yeah.
our intro theme.
I mean, don't get me wrong. The sax is a great instrument, and I've used it a lot. I mean, my being a trumpet player, my primary style is actually jazz. So I played with many many sax players, and one of my best friends is an amazing sax player, and I've used him on stuff a lot. But I don't know. I thought it was funny with the Outpost because if I said like, oh hey, if I was trying to joke around with the didgeridoo, for example, that probably wouldn't come off as funny because it could possibly fit an Outpost or some unique instrument, whereas a saxophone I felt is just kind of like I said, it was so
It
overused
was
in the
hilarious.
80s.
Yes, it was hilarious. For anybody who doesn't realize what we're talking about, James had actually put that Garrett had a sax solo. So that's been a little underlying joke that has been going. That when's Garrett going to do his big sax solo? We didn't know Jake could play. So that's been fun. Another thing I wanted to ask you is, what has your experience been like on Twitter? I know you joined with the
Mm.
Outpost, and it was kind of a newer thing for you. What's your experience been like meeting us nutty people?
Well, it's not that I'm new to social media. It's just I never had a reason to make a Twitter account. I don't even know how I ended up on it. I just, I follow the Mythica group on Facebook, and I think someone mentioned that I was mentioned on Twitter, and I looked it up or something like that. So,
Stacy.
I wasn't the
Probably
first one.
Stacy.
I found him because of a Garrett thing. So.
uh, it's been fine. I mean, it's fun. It's kind of quicker and more kind of like direct chatting versus Facebook, where you
Yep.
post something and then you wait for people to reply or whatever, and it's cool. It's nice, and it's neat to read about people enjoying the show in general, not just
Mm.
me specifically, but just people love the Outpost. I mean, I know there's been a lot of negative reviews, and
Yeah.
I mean you always hear how in people say in Hollywood, like, don't read reviews, and I've been a sucker to that with the Outpost. And
Mm.
so there's been times where I've on Twitter it's more positive, so it kind of was making me feel better. But like after the first episode, I read some reviews, and it just was really making me feel down and uninspired, and
Yeah, those are pretty brutal. I've got to be honest.
Yeah.
yeah. So I
Yeah. I
mean,
think the best one came from Australia, surprisingly. The City Morning Herald, I think, did a pretty solidly nice one. Um,
yeah. I mean, I don't know. I think everyone that's worked on the Outpost has just felt honored that it was picked up by the CW, because it wasn't
yeah,
originally supposed to. I mean, it was. I think it was just supposed to be on Sci-Fi International, so it wasn't even supposed to air in the U.S. And at the last second, the CW was interested. So, for us, we're just like, oh man, we're happy to be here. But and then for it's one thing to say, it's the show's fine, but it's not my cup of tea kind of thing. But it's another thing to just completely rip it apart. And
yeah.
I've been telling like friends and family, like, you know, people compare it to stuff like Game of Thrones, and I'm like, one episode of Game of Thrones probably costs 10 times the amount it costs to make the entire
I think it's like about a
season
million an echo, I
Outpost.
think, which is, yeah.
Yeah.
So, um,
But that's just it. That's not what this show is. That's not its niche.
And
yeah,
that's what Sonali was saying in her interview with me for Sci-Fi Locker, was that everyone forgets it's a CW show with a CW budget. It's not a CW show with a HBO budget. Like, HBO's obviously got millions to throw at shows. The CW doesn't have millions to throw at individual shows like that yet.
yeah. Well, I
And
mean,
like, so it's unfair to compare it to like Amazon's upcoming Lord of the Rings or or HBO, because the CW is like a family network. It's not a cable channel that has that big budget that can do that sort of thing yet.
yeah. I don't really know much about. I mean, if you asked me how much it costs to make the Outpost, I couldn't tell you. I mean, they don't let me know that stuff. I don't
Mm.
know if the CW invested money into the Outpost or not. I don't. really know any of that. I mean, obviously, only thing they tell me is how much or how little they're going to pay me. So um, that's all I really hear about it. So I can't say budget wise what the Outpost is. It's probably something you guys would have to ask if you ever, if you ever talk to one of the executives and they're willing to disclose that information.
I think we're working on posh. I emailed John last night. I think so. Hopefully, we can get one of them. Also waiting on Dean's publicist as well. So hopefully we can get at least one of the execs to be able to chat to
I'd love to
about
get
that
Doug
side.
on.
But,
Yeah, I think I'm the
yeah,
only
I'm
one.
still waiting for Doug. I think he's a bit busy at the moment. I think.
Everyone else on the show has publicists and managers and agents, and you guys just direct message me and like, hey, you want to do this? I'm like, yeah. So,
Well, that's what
I
I did
don't.
with Sonali. Actually, I dodged a publicist entirely, and it just developed via Twitter DMs, and now we're having like DMs on Facebook Messenger. So it's amazing how open the cast and crew are, though, on the show.
Mm-hmm.
I know Winona Earp's renowned for having like a really open cast, but I think the Outpost might just top that. Just in the access to the cast, the access to the crew. Like I
Yeah,
think with the exception of Jess, given the CW sort of protecting her,
Eager and
um,
humble. That's that.
is
They're both
yeah.
important.
I mean, like the way Sonali embraces fans is like huge. It's like she doesn't have to make time to like have a 2 hour chat with me, but she does. It's just the sort of person she is, and it's like the casts in general seems to be like really super sweet and really straightforward, and the crew as well. Like to just message like we just messaged you, like the composer of this CW show, and you're like, yeah, sure. Like that's most shows wouldn't openly just go, yeah, I'll happily sit down and chat to you. Like, a lot of them just go, oh well, if you're going to, we were going to charge like $500 for the interview or something crazy, and like 99% of the Outpost cast are just like, yeah, we'll sit down with you. Um, like as because obviously it's publicity for the show, but it's just the amount that the cast and crew have been open to the fans is just amazing.
yeah. I like I said, I think we just, we appreciate just being where we are and able to work on the show. At least, I mean, at least I do.
Mm.
If it wasn't for the Outpost, I'd probably be working on nothing right now. So it's with me, it's like any project I get, I'm just thankful to have because I've had dry spells before, and when you have a family to support, it's pretty difficult when you're not working. And so like I said, I've just been really thankful that you know they picked me to do the Outpost, and obviously I want the entire show to succeed. So I've been trying
Yeah,
to do my best, the best I can from what I could do, and um, so and then to me it's awesome to have people ask questions or like this, do an interview. It's nice to,
yeah,
like I said, be acknowledged. So I enjoy it. Anyone ever has questions, feel free to ask me, and even if it's technical,
Speaking of
the technical
questions,
side.
can you guys hear me?
yeah. I think I have probably a slightly funnier one. I noticed on your resume is Looney Tunes.
Oh yeah, you want to know about it?
Just curious, yeah, just curious as to how that one came up and when.
I think that was the end of 2014. Um, I mean, there's like I said, there's composers I've worked. I was their assistant, and there's a couple composers where I'm not really their assistant anymore, but they still, like, if they get in a jam, they call me and say, hey, I'm working on this, can you help me out with writing the music? And I've been in the same situation where I've had too much work, and it's just, and practically every composer out there, minus like John Williams, does that, where they're just like either time is just too short or they have more than one project and they just can't handle all the work. So they usually have other composers help them. And so with the Looney Tunes, a composer that I used to be his assistant, he was scoring that, and it was just a Looney Tunes direct to DVD or whatever video. And so he asked me if I could do some of the music in that, and of course, I said sure and had fun. And I wasn't working on anything
I
at the
guess that
time.
was like a childhood dream for you. Get to work on Looney Tunes.
Yeah, I mean, it was fun to do. The scenes I had were kind of like, I mean, if you listen to them on my website, they're kind of like, romp, kind of chase, fun scenes, kind of thing. And that's actually me playing all the trumpet parts because they're kind of jazzy. And then I was saying I had one of my close friends is a sax player, and he played all the sax parts. And then I didn't mention it, but I also play guitar. So
I thought I saw something when you had the didgeridoo out before and you was showing us the percussion. I was like, hang on, there's like a line of something there.
yeah. So
Now I see what they are.
well, I have a bunch of guitars, and I've been playing them on a little bit on the Outpost, but not much. So anyway, I keep seeing these messages pop up. Was there other questions?
Yeah. Regarding that, Shay has some audience questions, so I will throw it over to Shay to ask those.
Sure thing.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
There we go. Okay, sorry about that. All right. Well, number one, Sonali is in our group chat right now, and she says hi.
Hello.
And she wanted to say, where did it go? That she wanted to say thank you, that she saw episode 6 and the music you composed for Essa, she loves it.
Oh, cool. Thank you. I'm that's neat that she got to see it ahead of everyone.
So, all right. So our first question was kind of in relation to something that was previously touched on. Catherine Jarman asked, are there recurring themes for each main character, and how were they created?
Musical themes?
Yes.
I try to. I mean, yeah, that was my goal. Obviously, Talon has the biggest theme that's played at the end credits. That's like her hero theme, but then I also have her. I don't know what to really call it. It's like her sadder kind of the Black Blood theme that I've been wanting to use more and more, but it's hard to find spots when Talon's emotional. So
Every time she gets stabbed?
well, I kind of put it in here and there. Like I used it in episode 5 when the Smith is saying that talking about controlling the Lakiri is passed down from father to son, from mother to daughter, when she gives him a big hug. And then, and I use that theme when in the first episode when she's little, when she's looking at the whatever that creature, I forgot the name, before it gets
Lakiri?
shot. No, when she's little, there's when she's a little girl in the beginning. Anyway, I've been trying to fit that in here and there. So, and then I have Garrett's theme, which they asked me to make kind of make episodes. I haven't been able to use it much, but episode 6, it definitely is used a lot. And then Gwen has a theme, which the big reveal of it is in episode 6, and it's kind of been hinted at since episode 3. But
Hang on, so episode 5 wasn't the big reveal?
well, when Withers finds her staff or whatever in her ring, Gwen's theme plays over that a little bit.
Oh.
But it's not really. You don't really, like I said, really. I don't really get to really flesh it out until, or flesh it out till episode 6. So, and then from there on, I get to use it more. And then I have a theme for General Calcazar that comes a few times, and Withers. I don't know if you guys. Withers is pretty simple. It's kind of like that bass guitar kind of sound. Trying to think. Like I said, Essa is not really. It's more of a sound, not really a theme.
Mhm.
And then they asked me to write a theme for the Outpost itself, which I used in the first episode, and it's kind of used over the main titles, but I haven't found a spot to use it since then. And then there's a theme for the Rebel Army, like Garrett's army people, his army, and I use that here and there, and I use it a lot in episode 10 actually, but I'm not going to say anything.
Cool.
So
So
I think from the vibes I'll go for episode 10 is the general direction that it's going.
well, I'm sure that this. I'm sure the story. I'm sure a lot of people have hunches on where the story's going, so it's not going to be like some huge radical change in the story. Like all of a sudden, this character turns into this. It's not going to be like a revealing moment kind of thing, but it
It's
still
more going to be
gets.
a like a what moment, from what I can gather.
Yeah, I mean, at least for me, when I saw episode 5 and I found out that the Smith was the wolf, that, like, to me, I was like, whoa, I wasn't expecting that. But I'm also kind of gullible, and I'm sure some people figured that out ahead of time. I don't know.
Not really, because we interviewed Josh last week, and he was like, "Yeah, I played the wolf early on," and then when they showed the flashback, I'm going, "That's not Josh's face."
Oh yeah.
No,
Well,
hey, excuse you. Sonali totally called out that he played the wolf and put him on the spot. But I think
Yeah.
I think there's one more thing from Shay.
yes. The other question was we did have somebody in the audience who was actually very surprised that you do most of this from home. So I kind of edited the question a little bit, and for anybody who's wanting to get started in the industry, in general, not even like college degrees or anything like that. Just genuinely wanting to start playing with the concept of making music. Um, you mentioned Cubics. What are some basic like musical programs that you would recommend to anybody who's literally just wanting to dabble in getting started in the industry?
um, well, going back to the software, I mean, any software works. I don't want anyone thinking that because I use Cubase that's some magical software that helps me write. It's not. I mean, the music comes out of my head. It's just Cubase is the tool I use.
Mm-hmm.
So basically, I mean, if I think a good if you just want to dabble in, like, if you have a Mac, people that have Macs, I know the Apple comes with GarageBand for free, and it comes with a few instruments, so that's something to dabble with. I'm sure there's programs in on the so
Mm-hmm.
they're not, it's not, they're some of them. When we talk about synthesizers, like, that's actual synthesizers where it's creating a sound from nothing. But when I'm playing like the violins, for example, in my computer, that's a recording of real violins, and I'm just manipulating them to sound real. And I
Mm-hmm.
think that in itself is an art, is taking the sampled instruments and making them sound like a real orchestra, like real musicians are playing them. And that's something that I've worked hard on for since I was in school, because I listened to things I did 10 years ago, and I'm like, that sounds awful compared to, and I still don't think I do a good job, but um, I mean, it gets the job done. So, but
Mm-hmm.
anyway, going back to your question, uh, is the question about getting into film music or just recording instruments
It's
or whatever?
mostly like I said, somebody was very fascinated that you could actually do this stuff from home and not have an entire orchestra behind you assisting you. You can literally be a one man show. Um, so I guess it's like a curse of knowledge question. For people who want to get into music and realize that this is actually accessible, I guess is the more elaborate part of the question.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's accessible. It's not cheap, though. I mean, obviously, like anything, the more expensive um, instrument libraries are going to sound a lot better than the less expensive ones.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's obvious. It's something I've invested in over the years. Just as technology changes and stuff.
Mm.
So um, I mean, yeah, when I started out doing this, they didn't have any. When I was in college, they didn't have what they do now, and I was doing everything on a laptop with a small, you know, keyboard that was like 2 feet wide and just headphones. I didn't even have speakers, and I was scoring student films that way. And before that, I was writing everything by hand on the piano and asking like friends in college, "Hey, can you record this for me?" And
Yeah.
so I mean, I think it's just if someone's interested in it, it's just do research on sample libraries or music sample libraries or instrument sample libraries, and there's whole forums of there's out there of people that are interested in this kind of stuff. So
Mm-hmm.
um, it's a good place to start, I think. If anyone has questions, they can ask me on Twitter, like specific questions.
Absolutely. That was really all of the audience questions that we did have. Um,
Did have one more for James that sort of come up from Sonali in the past few days that I was wondering was relevant.
Sure.
Is it's the ADR, which for anyone listening that doesn't know, it's automatic dialogue replacement.
Hmm.
Because Sonali said she may have ADR in the coming days or weeks. I was wondering, does that then come back to you to like re-score or because there's
Uh,
new dialogue?
no, if it's sound related, I usually don't get it. If they replace stuff or do the ADR, a lot of times if there's like a line missing in while I'm working, either it'll be typed up on the screen what the line is at the moment, or whoever edited the episode will just say it. Even if it's not the character's actual voice or whatever, but so I mean, no, I never get the sound. The only time I'll get changes is if they change the actual picture. I mean, like the scenes and stuff, and uh, that kind of happened. I don't know if I mentioned it on Facebook, but like this might be interesting to everyone, but the first episode actually wasn't shot the way that it aired. um, it originally was told, and some people may have heard this before, but it was originally told in a linear time fashion where it started out with Talon as a young girl in the village and all that, and then it went into her after she slices her ears as a little girl. Then it cuts to her at that gambling scene, and personally, I liked it better that way because it kind of made you understand why she was, kicking ass with the
Yeah.
Prime Order soldiers and all that, instead of just starting off right away with her just hey, who is this girl? She can fight like that. What the heck, you know? How is she able
Yeah.
to fight like that? Why is she so angry? Anyway, just I'm not going to say who or why they chose to change it, but they did. So obviously, I had to go back and re-edit and rewrite some scenes. I think I was working on like the third or fourth episode when they asked me to do that, and then I think I was on the fifth episode, and they decided that the Outpost main title, you know, when it comes up, they decided to extend that by 2 seconds, which threw off all the music after that for the first 5 episodes. So I had to go back and fix all that. So, but I mean, thankfully, the last half of the episodes they've given to me where it's locked and they haven't touched it, and which has been nice because I mean I know in Hollywood there's they tend to they tend to be re-editing the film up until like the day before it's released into the movie theaters, and the composer is like always having to, well, everyone, but since I'm a composer, I know about it. They're always having to change the music to the new edit, and it becomes a headache. And I've assisted composers where they'll be like at Warner Brothers studio with the live orchestra recording the score, and then all of a sudden they get a new version of the picture of the movie come in, and they have to sit there, at Warner Brothers and edit the music and re-record that scene or whatever. And it's just like it's just such a times like that can be such a headache. And so I'm thankful that, like I said, the last half of the Outpost season, nothing like that has happened. They've just locked it and given me the picture, and so I've been going from there. I think it's also a time thing though, because they're going to air episode 6 soon, and I still have 3/4 of episode 10 to finish, and I know the visual effects guys are probably still working on like 7 right now, or I don't know. They could be on 8. I don't know, but
Is that why the hiatus happened? Because of the production side of things, or you're not quite sure?
I don't know. I didn't even know there was. I didn't even know they were skipping a week. Up until
I only found out via Sonali because she's like, "Oh, they're I don't get introduced till the 21st now." I was like, "What?"
yeah, I don't know why.
Um,
I couldn't tell you. There could be so many reasons. It could just be like, maybe the network decided to take a break. I don't know, or they want to air something else. Like maybe there's some sporting event. I don't know.
could be, yeah.
So
Because I'm in Australia, I do miss the American sporting schedule, so that could be it.
yeah.
It's probably something that they've got to air or something, maybe.
Well, I mean, for at least for me, when I found out that this episode 6 was or was a week later, I was kind of like, oh, it was kind of like a weight off my shoulders because, like I was saying, there's so much music in 10 that I was thinking it was going to take me a long time to do, but this gives me, not that I'm
Give some
dragging my,
breathing room.
yeah, but yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. It gives me I can put a little more detail into the music instead of trying to rush it to get it done, and so that'll really help because being the last episode, obviously I want to go out on a bang. I want to make it the
Yeah.
best, hopefully.
Is there any other questions for James from any of you?
I'm not seeing new questions, but I did want to actually kind of cut in here just so people have a chance to know. If anyone's interested in checking out
At the moment, we have literally got a guest that confirmed overnight to me, and from Mythica, so James actually might well know him, and from Shooter, as well as Vampu, and of course the Outpost, we've got the one and only Munt, aka Adam Johnson,
Oh, we have
joining
Adam
us. We are yet to
Johnson.
confirm a date. I said
Yes.
I'll get back to him after the stream. So yes, we will have Adam Johnson join us in the coming weeks, who I gather James may know from, and he's also been on Brooklyn Nine-Nine, which is a nice little touch there. But I assume James might know of him, given they're probably saw a lot of each other on Mythica.
I know Adam. I know the actors because I watch their faces a million times when I'm working on it, but
Yeah,
they usually don't really know who I am. I mean I've met Jake and Melanie, um, and they're both super nice. I've never met Adam yet, but from what I hear, he's super cool, super awesome, and um, so that's really good news that you got him. I've worked on other films with him in them besides Mythica, so he's always good in everything, and so awesome that you guys got him. I'm sure a lot of Mythica fans and will be happy to hear that.
yeah. I noticed a lot of the Outpost cast and crew have generally come from Mythica. I think there's like Jake, Dean, you, Adam. There's like 90% of the cast is from Mythica. I don't know whether that's just a strange coincidence or deliberate.
Um, I think it's maybe a coincidence. I mean, I know a lot of people. I mean, the Outpost was a little bit, I think, bigger than Mythica, so I know people had to audition, and so like I know Jake had to audition for Garrett's part, and it wasn't just handed to him going out, trying to get the part rather than just hand it to them. So should we end this? Is
Yeah. So yeah, we'll just wrap up. One to let James go, and secondly, Shay's computer's getting angry. um, so yeah, as our first one as cult fans, I'd like to thank James for very nicely joining us to discuss his work and the Outpost. And hopefully we can get a season two, and you keen, we'll happily get you back to discuss season two scoring.
Thank you
yeah,
very much for your time
Yes,
today. I love
yeah, we
talking
truly appreciate it.
yeah. Well,
Yeah,
thank you for
thanks,
having me.
James.
Thank you for having me. Like I said, if anyone has more questions, I only have a handful of followers on Twitter, so I'm happy to answer.
Go follow him. Go follow James.
Go follow him. I will update the description
Yeah,
and put all of his social contacts in there. Obey the cult.
yeah,
Well, if you want, I mean,
and and
it's it's nice to have followers at all. So I
mm,
appreciate everyone. So thank you for having me.
yeah, and more details for James will be on our website at cultfans.com. It's not at cultfans, it's www.cultfans.com. And so we'll be posting stuff about our guests from here on out, and as well as stuff about James, upcoming work, etc. And thank you very much, James, for joining us on our first one as cult fans.
Yeah, yeah,
We really appreciate it, and look forward to the music of yours for the next 5 episodes.
great. Well, I hope you enjoy them. I mean, I've been saying it. The episode 6 and on gets really good. So enjoy the rest of the series and spread the word.
Will do. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you, everyone. Have a good morning, evening, afternoon, wherever you are.
Thanks,
Thank
James.
you.
All right.
Thank you very much.